You're dancing to the land. So, thank you for joining our masterclass today, Hackers, Hybrid Work and Hidden Risks. As the digital world is evolving, it's evolving at a breakneck speed, and we see this every single day with hybrid working, cloud adoption, and increasingly sophisticated cyber threats. Traditional security models are just being pushed to their limits. So what we want to do in today's session is to really dive into how organisations can look to simplify and strengthen their security posture using a unified approach. So I'm joined today by my colleague Lee and an expert from Fortinet, Dan, who are global leaders in secure networking and security. Lee, do you want to give us an introduction?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Lee Walgate. I'm the Managing Director for the Secure Networks Division at Nasstar. I have over 2 decades of experience in working with organisations in helping them transform their digital communications platforms, and over that period I've specialised in networking and security technologies, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation and unpacking some of the concepts around secure architectures and secure access service edge.
Excellent. Dan.
Yeah, hey everyone, Dan Kendall. So I'm the CTO for Public Sector and National Security for the UK and Ireland at Fortinet. My primary role is to understand the trends and strategies coming out of government, central and arm's length body, and communicate that into the way that our products and services interface with the market and with our channel partners like Nasstar, and hopefully support the government in their journey to increase cybersecurity, increase cyber posture and awareness across the UK and also abroad as well.
Perfect. So what I want to do is to dive into what is SASE, what does it mean, explore some of the rise of zero trust, and share some actionable insights with the team here today. So let's get started with the big picture. I mentioned earlier around the evolving threat landscape and what we're having to deal with every day as organisations. Lee, can you just give me an idea of why traditional security models are really struggling with hybrid working and cloud-first environments?
Yeah, sure. So there are a number of models that we struggle with, and one that seems to persist is this concept of castle and moat architectures that really just don't fit anymore. I think everybody could see immediately that perimeter, that posture just doesn't exist anymore. It did work, and we need to think back to the time it did work, where our users would go into an office every day, and the data and the applications that they would access would be connected to the same network that they were accessing. There's kind of a trusted and untrusted demarcation. So you had your applications and your data and your users protected by a layer of corporate firewalls, and you had this trusted private network and an untrusted network, which was internet connectivity. And clearly that is gone. Our users are hybrid. They're in and out of the office. They're connecting primarily using internet as their method of connection to the enterprise network. And more importantly, the data that they're accessing, the applications are now hosted on public cloud, so they're in multiple locations on public cloud. Now that's a problem if the tools and the security policies that we've got applied in those tools, the models that they work with, still assume that this posture is in place, this demarcation still exists. Like a traditional VPN, as an example, you authenticate onto a VPN, you're then seen as a trusted user, onto a concentrator, and you can move laterally across the organization. And that's often some of the reasons why ransomware or insider threats are still successful, because these holes exist in that old model of working. So we need to start moving away from tools that assume the castle and moat architecture is in place, and look to policies and tools that respect this hybrid way of working and move towards zero trust architectures.
Dan, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, and I think if you look at the way that even just architectures have changed in the last 3 or 5 years since COVID, we have people, as you said, working from home, coffee shop working, but we also have architecture and medical IoT, OT that is increasingly internet connected. And if you look at the march of just that subset of capability, security isn't built into those. There is no secure by design. There is no secure by default. You have electronic vehicle chargers that have 4 5G SIMs in that send telemetry data home that typically are completely unsecure, and you're just relying on the system communicating to the system. We are looking now as a country, we are marching towards ever increasing amount of regulation. That regulation is having an ever increasing amount of financial and potentially even penal time behind it for a lot of industries like finance and increasingly other areas. The public sector are dealing with Gothershore, and the thing that is underlying, or the theme that's underlying in all of these different things, is a minimum viable level of security, and that is driven by risk analysis. And what we need to be able to understand risk is visibility. And in our fractured architectures that a lot of organizations have, we have 50, 100, 150 point tools that have all different interfaces that all say the same thing but in different ways. It's very hard to determine, takes a long time to actually investigate this. And we don't have the visibility we need to accurately assess our risk.
Yeah, and that's the problem though, isn't it? Is that traditional castle and moat, it simply can't work because it can't defend a perimeter, because the perimeter is just not there anymore. And today's threats are so much more agile than they used to be, using AI, they're data aware, they're context driven. And I suppose this is where SASE comes into that conversation. So for those who are not familiar, Dan, could you break down for me what is SASE? And how does it help to tackle these new challenges that we're now facing?
Yeah, I could talk about this for a long time, and we've only got 20 minutes.
Keep it brief.
So look, there's marketing's not here, so I can say this. SASE as a term has been got hold of by marketing teams, right? And dependent on what marketing team you talk to, it can mean different things. But in my simplistic world, it's an architecture that enables security to deliver both network level, cloud level, and endpoint level, right? Simplistically. And no matter where the user is, what endpoint they're on, how they're connecting, that service, that security, that minimum baseline is following them. And it is a architectural approach that allows us to understand our users, the context in which our users are accessing data, where that data is stored, and how that data is being transported. And importantly, the visibility that gives from a logging perspective, but also from a management perspective, is continuous from the endpoint through the network into the cloud, wherever that cloud may be, SaaS, hyperscaler. Where we see, or where I see SASE going, is very much a modular approach to zero trust, right? You can't do everything big bang. Some organizations will say SASE is a cloud delivered, everything must hit the cloud to be inspected, and then we'll make a decision on whether it goes left or right. In my world, that is just taking a traditional castle and moat approach of everything's in my data center, and I'm doing my security now in someone else's data center, and they're paying me for the bandwidth to send everything there. It doesn't compute, joke intended. But if we look at the architecture and we look at spreading that architecture and spreading the risk analysis, the visibility, that to me is a true SASE model.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that we need to stop thinking about SASE as a mashup of networking and security. We need to be seeing it as a unified cloud native architecture, because that is what delivers the seamless identity driven protection wherever your users are. So let's have a look at how SASE really works in practice. Because it's great talking about it as a concept, but how does it work for an actual day-to-day organization, Lee?
What changes day to day is really how users access data. So we've said we've moved away from trust models and castle and moat. We've moved to zero trust. And what does that mean? So means we treat every network that we attach to like it's a coffee shop. It's like it's the public Wi-Fi connection that we just know is untrusted. And that mindset shift, when we make that mindset shift, it means we stop protecting the network asset or trusting the location. And we start applying security policies to the data that our users are accessing and the user themselves. And that policy then moves with the user irrespective of the location. And that's exactly what you get when you deploy SASE. And the trust relationship then becomes intelligent. So we measure the trust relationship in an intelligent way using three ways really. Firstly, it's continuous. So the trust relationship isn't just done once at authentication on logon. It's continuously assessed. Every session, every request for data is monitored. Then it becomes granular And contextual, firstly, the granular side of it is you get least privileged access. So rather than becoming a trusted user and then being able to access resources across the organization, you are given the minimum amount of access required, limiting the blast radius in case something goes wrong. And then finally, it's contextual. And what that means is we are continuously, once you've authenticated and you've got this granular level of access, we're continually measuring for things like threats, the location of the user, the device, and if there are threat signals, access to data can be revoked in real time. So we've flipped the model from trust and trust demarcations. We've applied security policies to the user, and they roam with the user.
Perfect. So I'm not a terribly technical person. I want to be able to just come in and log on. And as a general user of technology, I love it when IT implements new operations that you have to go through. User experience is key here. So if I just want to come in and get on with work, how does Unified SASE make that easier for someone like me?
So the key to that, and the word we try and use, and what we're certainly trying to achieve for the end user, is a ubiquitous type of access. So we want the users to have zero regard for the location that they're accessing their enterprise data from. So we're not training them that a coffee shop is an insecure network anymore and you need to connect to VPN. It's all done seamlessly in the back end. There's no clunky VPNs, there's no multiple authentication methods. It's single sign-on, and the user gets a seamless experience on access.
Okay, so let's talk about a more technical team. Let's say we're talking about an IT team or a SOC, for example. How does Unified SASE make their life easier, faster?
Yeah. So what we're aiming to achieve with a unified platform is taking the operator's day-to-day experience from firefighting to having a lot better visibility and control. So they are not stitching together, as you said, lots of different point systems. We're not trying to correlate logs from, say, half a dozen different systems.
Yeah.
We've got a unified platform with consistent policy enforcement to the edge, and then especially when you've got network and the endpoint in play, you start getting the XDR type of experience. So we've got logs coming in from the endpoint for maybe anomalies from the endpoint, some suspicious logs on. We can correlate that against information from the network, and that leads to faster response times and faster remediation of any issues as they occur. So the idea is to lift the value of the SOC operator's day-to-day activity up rather than firefighting.
Perfect. So it means that SASE, it stops that security from being a barrier and turns it into an enabler, because it means that your IT teams are providing smarter protection, faster responses. It's a single pane of glass to be able to see and report around. So let's talk about this with some real life examples. So Dan, could you share with us some examples around how Unified SASE has delivered measurable ROI? That's the key to this, is where can we start to see ROI for organizations?
Yeah, and ROI is it's always a bit of a fluffy topic because you can make numbers up. But if you look at the hard and then soft return on investments, if we go back into the conversation around vendor sprawl and point product sprawl, right? There's a very obvious hard return on investment. If we start to converge and consolidate the number of point products we're actually using as a team, then naturally our renewal costs are going to go down, our licensing costs are going to go down over the term, whether that's 1, 3, 5, 15 years, right? It doesn't matter. But the softer ones, and especially when you look at a SASE architecture that's a modular approach, if we start looking at procurements and the way procurements have evolved over the last 3 years, they're moving away, or procurement teams are moving away from the concept of, I have a challenge, I'm going to go to use this point product, and I'm going to use this point product for this challenge. Now I've got a new challenge, we'll go to procurement and we'll do this. It's moving into more of an outcome-orientated, project-focused methodology. And what that is allowing for is these 3 or 5 year business plans that enable investment in a use case, i.e. day one, let's say a secure networking internet first model in SD-WAN, to be re-leveraged 3, 4, 5 times throughout the next 3 or 4 procurements, driving down the total cost of ownership in the initial outlay, but then driving more capability out of it as we move through. The softer elements to that then enable us to say have less things for our people to be trained on and manage. Therefore, I don't know if anyone's done any hiring in the room, but hiring someone that knows 3 or 4 products very, very well is very, very hard. Retaining that person is arguably even harder. But if we are able to hire someone knowing, on 1 product or 2 products, it means we've got a higher pool to be able to hire from, and we're able to retain that person. But also it means that we're not making changes to multiple different point products to do the same thing. We're increasing efficiencies. We are therefore reducing risk of human error, therefore reducing risk of breach. There's so many different soft return on investments you get that are slightly harder to quantify but can be quantified. And then last but not least, the main one is agility, right? So if we're working in an architecture that can pivot quite quickly, let's take AI as an example, right? Who knows what their users are putting into ChatGPT if they're not on network? What prompts are they using? What data are they uploading? Unless you're outright blocking it. But the business doesn't want you to block it because there's productivity gains. But with a SASE architecture, you can see those prompts no matter where they are. You can block keywords, you can enable DLP. So it enables business agility and enables the CIO or the CISO or both to go onto the board and say, no, look, actually, we're a revenue enabler. And that suddenly starts unlocking doors to funding.
Lee?
Yeah, I think the only thing really to add is I agree, there's lots of different points where you can get return on investment depending on who you are and where you're working from and where the starting place is. I think what we've tried to do at Nasstar is speed up the return on the investment to get to the ROI piece. And we tried to remove the obstacles and the hurdles that are in the way to deliver that ROI. So one of the game-changing things we've done as well, and it's only been enabled by the way that the SASE architecture is deployed, because it's got automation and orchestration and role-based access control against all of the tools we're using. We've been able to create a co-managed model, and that's removed a couple of barriers. One of the barriers we face with our clients is that we see that there's some reluctance sometimes to migrate from one tool set to the unified SASE experience, and the fear is being locked out of the infrastructure, losing control, maybe the agility to make their own changes, fear of putting all the eggs in the basket of the managed service provider. So with a co-managed model, it's much more of a partnership. So that accelerates the adoption. It removes some of the barriers, and it also accelerates. You mentioned about training staff, the learning curve. What you get there is the best of both worlds. So you can, as you skill it up, you can start implementing some of your own changes, doing some of your own change control, but still get the benefit of having an MSSP on board to do the 24/7 service where needed, or some of the more complicated changes.
Yeah. And this is the thing, is that I'm in marketing, and we use SASE as a bit of a buzzword because it's, it's cool right now. You tag that in with AI and it's really cool, but it's not a buzzword. It's a journey that these organizations are going to be going on. And I think it's really important to remember that, you can't just go and buy SASE off a shelf. It's definitely a selection of products that you go at as it makes sense for your organization. So we can see that obviously bringing SASE into a business really can unlock ROI in so many different ways. It gives you access to more tools while consolidating those tools as well. And it gives you that phased journey into zero trust. So Dan, if there were key takeaways that you wanted the audience to take from this today, what would they be?
Several thousand. I guess the main one for me really is, a SASE architecture is a journey. Everyone that's ever said anything about zero trust, everyone has a zero trust something, right? Zero trust endpoint, zero trust edge, zero trust whatever. But zero trust, as we all know, is a lot more than just technology. It's HR, it's policies, it's the way that people work. What the SASE architecture gives us is that staged approach to that end goal. Will all of us get there? No, maybe not. But what we will be able to do is deliver an architecture that enables the visibility for a business to accurately be able to assess its risk, put the controls in place for its most risky users or its most risky data. And what you'll eventually probably see is that you will have a semblance of zero trust just in that journey and just in that initial adoption of a true SASE architecture. The other thing for me really is, what one of the things that Fortinet really, or we rely on, is partners like Nasstar who, have boots on the ground. They have the capability, the people, to be able to be that trusted provider, be that trusted supplier to you guys, and help you on not just the technology journey, but the business case journey and the 3 or 5 year roadmap journey as well.
Yeah, I would add that, as you say, from the trusted partner perspective, Nasstar have invested heavily in our relationship with Fortinet. We're one of only 2 partners in the UK who have got the suite of certifications we've got. So we've got certifications across SD-WAN, the operational technology, if you're into the manufacturing segment, on security operations and SASE, so we're well placed. And the journey piece, I totally agree. It's certainly not something you just buy a SASE service and turn it on. What we've done at Nasstar is we've created an adoption roadmap of frameworks to meet our clients wherever they are on that journey. So you may have a piece of software that's becoming end of life or end of support that needs to go first. You may have had a security assessment and there's a specific threat that we need to start on. So we're not providing an off-the-shelf managed service. It's very much tailored to meet our clients on their journey towards the adoption of zero trust architectures.
Perfect, thank you. So if you have any questions that we haven't answered with our little chat here, then you can come and find us on the stand just outside, and you can come and have a chat to us about SASE, ZTNA, or securing those modern networks. And we've got the team here from both Nasstar and Fortinet, so you can talk to us both at the same time. In addition, if you scan the QR code, you can also do our SASE readiness assessment. It takes about 5 minutes. You can get an idea of how ready your organisation is to go on that SASE journey. See how far along that journey you might already be. And if you do that and you request your personalised report, you can be entered into our giveaway, and Lee chose our giveaway prize. It's a
Sinclair Spectrum 48K rubber keys.
There you go.
You did have to explain what that was to me as well.
And it brings this smile to his face every time we talk about it. So come along and see us on the stand. Don't miss your opportunity to find out how SASE ready you actually are, and speak to our team. But thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.